Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Sam Malriad. I'm the director of the Organic Crop Consulting Program here at the Rodale Institute. I'll be starting off today's webinar, which we've titled So You're Ready to Transition to Organic, which will give you a short introduction to our consulting team and offer a few things for you to think about as we move into a new growing season. This webinar will be recorded and posted on our website. So if you'd like to view it again in the future or pass it on to a friend, you'll be able to find it in the webinar archive on our site under the Education tab, but we'll also email a link to all participants once the webinar is over. If you have any questions during the presentation, please don't use the chat box, but instead type them into our Q&A box, and we'll do our best to answer them in the order they're received once we wrap up. We'd also like to extend a special thank you to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture for their support, which allows us to offer consulting services for free to farmers and landowners in Pennsylvania. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. This is a little bit about what we'd like to cover today. First, I'll give a brief introduction to the Rodale Institute for those of you that may be joining us from around the world or are not familiar with Rodale. Then we'll have each of the people on our consulting team give a quick introduction. We'll go over some of the services that we offer in our organic crop consulting program. Then we'll get into the weeds just a little bit on organic regulations and some practical tips for transitioning to organic, and go over any questions you might have. So the Rodale Institute is a research and education facility in Eastern Pennsylvania. Our mission is to grow the organic movement through research, farmer training, and consumer education. So we are a giant research farm. We do a lot of variety trials on our farm, and we try to make sure that the research we're doing is applicable to farmers all across the United States and the world. We aim to expand organic agriculture by assisting farmers in successfully transitioning to organic, conducting research on organic farming methods and their impact, and educating consumers on the benefits of organic for people and the planet. The Organic Crops Consulting Service is a manifestation of that first point, assisting farmers in successfully transitioning to organic. We go out, and our express goal is to help transition as much farmland as possible from conventional to organic production. So we're on the ground every day visiting farmers and trying to help them move through that 3-year transition period until they get their organic certificate. To take that a step further, we started some of these regional resource centers across the United States. So we now have campuses in Marion, Iowa at our Midwest Organic Center. Our headquarters, like I mentioned, is in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. Our California Organic Center is in Ventura, California, and we now have a Southeast Organic Center as well in the Chattahoochee Hills, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. The goal in having some of these resource centers set up is so that we can conduct research in those regions that will be useful to the farmers that operate in those regions, because we know something that works in Pennsylvania doesn't necessarily always work everywhere else. So we want to be able to get feedback from farmers on things that are important to them and crops that are important to them, and conduct research so that we can show that certain systems in those regions work better than others. So now we'll just give a quick introduction. This is our organic crop consulting team. We'll pass it off to each one of these members of our team, and I'll go ahead and start. My name's Sam. I'm the director of the Organic Crop Consulting Program. I was an organic farmer for about 12 years in Pennsylvania, New York, and Maryland prior to this position with Rodale. I specialize in commodity grain production, vegetable production, and crop rotation. Also very interested in no-till organic crop rotations. Graduated from Cornell University with an ag science degree, and now a CCA registered in Pennsylvania, and also IOIA certified in crops and livestock. IOIA stands for International Organic Inspectors Association, which helps to provide accreditation to those who conduct inspections for certifying bodies on organic farms. So the purpose of that certification is so that we can know what inspectors are looking for when they come out to do your first organic inspection. I also serve on the board of Pennsylvania Certified Organic, which is a certifying agency based in Pennsylvania. PA FarmLink, which helps connect farmers and landowners, and also on the governing council for the Organic Farmers Association, which helps push policy goals for organic farmers across the United States. And with that, I'll pass it on to Emily Newman.
Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Emily Newman. I'm the program manager of the Organic Crop Consulting Program. Prior to coming to Rodale, my experience was actually in regulatory compliance. So I worked for about 5 years in the regulatory compliance industry of organics. I was a certification specialist and staff inspector for a certification agency in Pennsylvania. And I also reviewed materials inputs for the Organic Materials Review Institute. My degree is actually from Penn State. I have a degree in soil science, and I'm currently pursuing an MBA in agribusiness from Delaware Valley University. I'm also IOA trained, but unlike Sam, I'm IOA trained in processing and handling, so have a little bit of experiencing on the processing side. I'm also a certified crop advisor for Pennsylvania and International, and I'm a board member of the Organic Materials Review Institute. I've also been involved with the Regenerative Organic Alliance. I'll be serving as a standards committee member, and we're going to talk about ROA a little bit at the end of the presentation. And with that, I will pass it.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick Podal. I'm one of the organic crop consultants in the Midwest, based in Nevis, Minnesota, which is in the north central part of the state. I have a master's degree in agricultural and extension education from North Carolina State University. I'm also IOIA trained in crops, certified in crops. And I've served several years on the NCR SARE Farmer Rancher Grant Review Committee. And I have a long history in organic agriculture. And that goes back my whole life. I grew up and farmed on a certified organic farm in southeast North Dakota, focusing primarily on small grains and vegetable seed.
And we also have Leah couldn't join us today, Leah Varek, but she has a pre-recorded introduction here that we'll play for you now.
Hi everyone, I'm sorry for not being here today, but I thought I would pre-record a little video to introduce myself. My name is Leah Verek, and I was hired as a crop consultant for the Rodale Institute in January of this year. I grew up on a farm in northeastern France, and my dad is a conventional grain grower, so my interest for agriculture comes from very early in my life. As it was time to go to school, I decided to study agronomy. And I really enjoyed it, and especially got very interested in sustainable agriculture as I saw that those cropping systems were very interesting in terms of biology and the holistic approach that they had to entail. So I decided to follow that path and got a degree in agronomy and agroecology. And through my schooling, I was lucky enough to be able to travel in Europe and study in Norway as well as Germany. And it was interesting to meet different researchers and what the stage of everything was at in those different countries, as well as meet local growers and kind of understand at that point that the challenges that organic growers are facing in the Western countries, at least, are very similar kind of everywhere. So that was a very interesting point of studying abroad and meeting these local communities. Before graduating, I worked with the local extension services, and there I was looking at the crop diversification and working with farmers directly to understand what the barriers were for them for crop diversification. And my supervisor at the time was the local organic crop consultant. And in France, we're lucky enough to have organic crop consultants in every region. And that's where I kind of was first exposed to crop consultancy and more specifically organic crop consultancy. And I was really fascinated by that job, but didn't really feel like I knew enough at that point to go ahead and be an organic crop consultant myself. So for 5 years, I worked with Dr. Erin Silva at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. For the first year, I was studying the impact of cropping system practices on soil microbial populations. So we were comparing grain system, forage system, and pasture system, both organic and conventional, and looking at the different soil microbial populations there. It was a very fascinating project, but I felt like I couldn't really give more answers to farmers by studying such a very precise and kind of nuanced topic. So I kept working for Erin, but moved to working on systems and organic cover crop based systems and tillage reduction in the system. So the rolled down rye and soybean no-till system is the most popular one, but we also try to do a lot of research on no-till corn and on different crops and in general, increasing the amount of cover crops in organic rotation. So that's what I was doing before starting to work with Rodale, and I felt comfortable enough that I had learned a ton by working on that, and I needed to get that knowledge out. And this is why I decided to apply and work as an organic crop consultant for the Rodale Institute. Thanks for listening, and I'm looking forward to meeting you.
We're really excited to have Leah and Nick on our team. They just started in January of this year. So if you're in the Midwestern United States, hopefully you'll get to meet both of them if you're interested in transitioning your farm. I'd like to go a little bit through our research, some of what we've found over, we've been around for 70 years as an institute, but I think what put us on the map was our farming systems trial, which was started in 1981. It's the longest running side-by-side comparison of organic and conventional grain cropping systems in North America. And the reason this is so important is because for a long time, conventional agriculture was making the argument that we needed this style of agriculture in order to feed the world, in order to feed everyone. And this was started as an attempt to find out if that was really the case. So what we did was we set up 3 different systems: an organic manure system, which is reflective of really a livestock pasture forage system; an organic legume system, which uses legume cover crops for fertility; and a conventional synthetic system. So we are using conventional inputs on those trial plots to sort of replicate the conventional cash grain production system. More recently, in the experiment's life, we separated those 3 systems into tillage and no-till systems. So that would make 6 really replicates, 2 in organic manure, 1 tillage, 1 no-till, 1 tillage and no-till in organic legume, and the same with the conventional system. And we've replicated that 12 times. So we have a total of 72 plots in our farming systems trial in order to get robust data on each one of these systems. So from that farming systems trial, after 30 years running, this is a little bit of what we found. We found that organic yields are competitive with conventional yields after a 5-year transition period. So this idea that we need this system, this chemical system, to feed the world was refuted a little bit with the data from this farming systems trial. Not only that, but organic systems produce yields up to 40% higher in times of drought. And some of our preliminary research just in the past 2 years finds that it may be 20 to 30% higher in times of excess moisture as well. Organic systems don't leach toxic chemicals into waterways, especially not synthetic fertilizers, because they're just not applied at the rate or the percentage as conventional systems. Organic systems use 45% less energy and release 40% fewer carbon emissions total. And one of the biggest opportunities we find for conventional farmers that would like to transition, and a big part of the argument that we make to farmers that are interested, is that you can earn between 3 and 6 times greater profits when you transition to an organic cash grain production system. So We find that this is a rare opportunity for farmers where the economic and the environmental line up pretty tightly. And some of our research has supported that transition for farmers. To get a little more in depth about exactly what is changing, because we do find that organic systems also have increased soil health over the long term. One good indicator of a healthy soil is a high organic matter percentage. Depending on where you live, organic matter percentages may max out at a certain percentage, but in general, the higher the organic matter, the healthier your soil. So what we found is, and you can see this trial started in 1981, we found that over a period of 10 years, more than 10 years here up to 1995, that the manure and the legume organic systems had a steady increase in organic matter percentage, whereas the conventional stayed relatively flat with some fluctuation in the past 20 years. I think most of these data points just represent more frequent measurement in the past 20 years. But what you can see is a pretty marked upward trend in both of these two organic systems, which comes out to about a 17% increase in soil organic matter in organic versus conventional systems. That's from 1981 to 2016. So what this means is, while it may take a while to build a healthier soil, it is true that the best way to do that is by implementing an organic production system. Because no matter which system you're using, you can see there's some lag in the legume system. It can be difficult to grow your own organic matter and your own nutrients. But in general, these systems help build soil health over the long term. So much so that we're going to continue to get data from this trial in the next 20 years. And we would expect to see that either level out or continue to steadily climb. Whereas the conventional system, I think it's safe to say that it probably has reached its maximum right now. Another interesting thing we find is, especially in organic systems that utilize cover crops, is that we see a lot more water infiltration, which is really important because it helps replenish the water table. It helps your crops hold on to moisture. For every 1% increase in organic matter, your soil is able to hold an additional 20,000 gallons of water per acre. So that's an exceptional amount of water. And we can see that in these two organic systems, that the infiltration rates, especially in the no-till manure system, are much higher. These letters here sort of denote difference, a significant difference between the bars, and these are error bars here. So in our no-till system, we actually see a no-till manure system. We see up to 15 inches per hour water infiltration. And again, you can see the conventional system lagging behind this in the tillage system as well, between manure and legume. We have, at some points, we've recorded up to almost 20 inches per hour in the organic legume system. So over the long term, an increase in water infiltration, something that can be really helpful in providing moisture to your crops. Another thing, so this really, this all sounds really good, but in the end, it does come down to your bottom line for a lot of farmers. And part of what this farming systems trial hoped to show is that this is also a more profitable system. So we measured our costs, our income and expenses on a per acre basis per year. You can see the organic system had $835 per acre as opposed to the conventional $495. We take that income, we subtract expenses, which are fairly similar between conventional and organic systems. I would say in some cases, expenses in organic systems can be slightly higher, depending on field passes and labor. But if you take that income and subtract the expenses, you see returns of $558 per acre in organic and $190 in conventional. That sort of fits in with our 3 to 6 times profitability that we showed in that first infographic. So we really do believe that not only is this better for soil health and water quality and for public health, but this is a more profitable system when it's done correctly. We're really trying hard to build more data on exactly how much more profitable organic systems are. So we have a little bit of data since this is a fairly new program, we have a little bit of data from 2019. We've built a little bit more out in 2020, but this is an example that we like to use of a dairy farmer that transitioned 30 acres of old pasture in central Pennsylvania. He also had another representative 30 acres that was in conventional production that we were able to compare it to. And you can see, so we had 30 acres, conventional and organic. We didn't have a control in this scenario, but we had something to compare to. He grew corn for grain in 2019, and his average yield in the conventional system was 140 bushels per acre at 30 acres. And he got, for that conventional corn per bushel, he got $4.40, which was the market price at the time he sold in December 5th, for a gross of about $18,480. In the organic system, once he got certified, the actual yield was a little bit lower. That is something we do tend to see during the transition period and for a few years after, a little bit of a lower yield that can creep back up in years 5 through 8. So at 110 bushels per acre on 30 acres, you got a contract price of $9.50 per bushel for corn. That's a gross of $31,350, a little under double what you would normally make in the conventional system. Keep in mind, this is gross. This is not with expenses or extra equipment added into it. It just gives you an idea as to the market price that you might get, the increased revenue you might get from transitioning. I added there at the bottom of the conventional column that even if he did 200 bushels per acre, which is pretty good around here, it would still be under the organic gross at 110 bushels. So it's something to keep in mind that even with a really good yield, which 140 sometimes can be a little low depending on where you are, you're still coming in under that organic gross at a not so great yield. I had just a little note over here on the right about what it might cost to seed a cover crop in that 30 acres once you remove the corn, just to give you an idea of what some of the additional costs might be with organic that may not be in the conventional system. And with that, I'll pass it on to Emily Newman, our program manager.
Thanks, Sam. So why this is all important is really what we're trying to do is take that research that we have an amazing staff of researchers across the United States conducting and translating it for farmers to use. And as we know, every farmer knows their land better than a consultant's ever going to know or an agronomist is ever going to know. So really what we're here to do is offer alternative ideas, be a sounding board for any issues you might be experiencing or any innovative trials you want to have on your farm. And we're here for that. And so with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about our consulting services and how we might, be useful in your operation. Next slide, please, Sam. So as Sam said, we're really, our mission is in line with Rodale's vision of transitioning as much acreage to certified organic as possible. So with that first bullet point of Rodale Institute's mission, we're kind of taking that and we're building it out and saying, this is what our consulting services are here for. So some of those things are providing technical assistance to farmers, landowners, businesses, and service providers in their efforts to transition farmland to certified organic. We're also translating that research results not only from Rodale Institute, but from partner organizations such as Stroud or other universities that we work with, like Penn State or University of Wisconsin, into practical information that can actually be implemented on the farm for the continuous improvement of soil health. And the last thing is that we know that working with your neighbors and your community can be a really vital part of the solution. And so we also serve as a connector to the larger agriculture community by creating education educational resources, and empowering farmers to, innovate on their own farm and achieve their long-term goals. Next slide. So I just want to break down a little bit about what that actually means and what that looks like in practice. So for our farms, Sam had mentioned we launched because Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture had their first ever farm bill, and it really wanted to support organic farms. And one of those things was that Rodale was able to launch a consulting service in Pennsylvania, and it's been really successful. We work with over 150 farms across the United States, and because of its success, we've been able to develop partnerships in other locations as well, such as the Midwest, which has allowed us to bring Nick and Leia on board and offer those services for free in 13 states. So one of those being Pennsylvania and the Midwest as well. So in those 13 states, we work as on-farm consultants, so we can go and visit the farm, actually see what some of those issues might be. Sam and I were actually just at a farm earlier today, and we were looking at their greenhouse growth, and they were having low germination rates. So we were kind of troubleshooting what those issues might be. We also really help with the certification side. So helping you complete your organic system plan, maybe preparing you for a mock inspection, organizing your records so you're ready for your inspection the upcoming season. We also have lots of record keeping templates and guidance from own experience of us working at farms, from different guidances that our own farm manager uses, such as online applications. We do group trainings and workshops, and we also will give lots of our clients access to our virtual course, which I'll share a little bit more later today. So then from the technical aspect, we can help with weed management guidance, crop rotation planning, and increasing the amount of plant diversity in your operation, providing equipment advice, input providers for directories. So if you're looking for a custom operator in Lancaster County, we can, do that research for you, help you find that custom operator that might be able to help you achieve your goals on your operation. We also can review soil sample results, make soil fertility recommendations, and use those as benchmarks on how to increase those things in the future, such as soil organic matter percentage or managing nutrients on your operation. And then lastly, we serve in the capacity to really help you find a market and an outlet for your product. We generally say don't plant something unless you already have it sold. So we're really about finding that buyer in the beginning of the season so that all you have to really worry about is growing that crop. Also connection to financial resources, whether those be private or also working with grants, opportunities for farmer-led research collaboration and referrals for business planning, and just all around networking with the organic community. Next. So we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the organic regulations, but we are going to talk a little bit about what those first steps might be if you were, if you're a farmer right now that's considering transitioning for the upcoming season or even applying for certification. So really our first piece of advice is if you're interested in transitioning to organic, call us, let us know, text us, call us, email us. We want to make sure that we're getting you on a path for success. So we can answer any of those questions that may be outstanding in your mind. Maybe you think that there's some barriers that you would just like to troubleshoot with us. We can be there for that. But if you're ready to transition, if you're ready to make that step forward, the next would be choosing a certification agency in your region. Overall, there's several certification agencies that certify within multiple regions. So it's really about finding the one that suits best for you, and we can help you through that process. Then you can undergo your transition period. You might be eligible for certification right now. If you haven't applied any prohibited substances in the last 36 months, then you could technically apply for certification today as long as you're meeting all of the requirements. But maybe you have been farming conventionally and you made your last spray date at the end of last year and you're ready to start that transition this upcoming season. So after you've undergone your organic transition for 36 months, you can apply for certification with that agency that you've selected. And through that, you'll be able to get inspected. And as long as you are meeting all of the requirements and have your paperwork in order, you'll be able to become certified organic, which allows you to gather that price premium in the marketplace. So I want to talk a little bit about the regulatory bodies and some of the key players that are involved in this, because sometimes there's some misconceptions and some confusion. So to use the USDA seal on your products or to sell your product as a certified organic product, you're actually not getting certified by the USDA. You're getting certified by a third-party body that is certified by the USDA. So following, that line of thought process, the USDA National Organic Program accredits a certifying body within the United States. They then send out an inspector to your farm operation, which allows you to use the USDA seal to sell to the consumer. So there's so many key players in this, and it's really important to point out that accredited certifying agencies, although they review your paperwork and they are the ones that would ultimately send out the inspector, they're not allowed to consult, which is one thing that makes our consulting services so unique, is that, if you were to get certified and, maybe have a non-compliance on your operation in year 2 or 3, they're not able to tell you why or how to come into compliance with that regulation. But that's something that our team really prides themselves in, is finding, innovative ways to come into compliance with the regulations. So as far as choosing a certification body, there's lots of considerations to make. You may ask about their fee structure, whether it's on a per acre basis, or whether it's about scopes, whether you're certifying crops or livestock. You also want to look into area of expertise. If you grow some sort of niche crop, like maybe you do organic grape wine, and maybe you're doing, organic almonds or something like that, you want to find a certification body that actually has other farmers that are doing that. So that generally comes to finding the area, but also just asking the questions, how many certified orchards do you have? Also responsiveness. I had a farmer tell me one time that they made a list of 5 certification bodies that they'd like to choose from, and they called every single one, and they went with the one that called them back first. So sometimes responsiveness is really important, and a lot of certification agencies are a little bit higher touch. So finding the one that answers your emails quickly or answers the phone when you call them, that's sometimes very important to a farmer. Some other agencies actually offer other services as well. The one that comes to mind is CCOF, which is in the top middle of the screen. They are also a policy body, so they do a lot of advocating on behalf of the farmers on the Hill, and also provide a lot of funding, federal funding sources and state funding sources for farmers. And then it's also important to consider the structure. Some are a state structure, such as Maryland Department of Agriculture. Maryland Department of Agriculture actually does the certification, where Pennsylvania Certified Organic is a private certification body. They're a nonprofit, so they are separate from the State Department. And some are for-profit, so you want to consider, what's the best option for you. So I'm going to pass it off to Nick, and Nick's going to offer some practical tips as you are thinking about your operation and transitioning to organic.
All right, so if you're thinking about transitioning to organic, it can really add a lot of value to your operation. We talked a little bit about the price premium increase for organic products. Everybody knows about that. Increased access to wholesale markets, and for a wider variety of crops. There's an opportunity to grow a lot more crops for a profit than there would be in a conventional system. So it gives you a lot of choices there. Improving your soil health over the long term is a great benefit as well for your farm and for the future generations that are coming to farm after you. You can cut out the cost of the chemical and the synthetic inputs, which helps you on your bottom line, obviously. Potentially increase land value that comes with the certified organic label, depending on the region that you're in. And then a positive public perception just in terms of your farm and what you're doing, the practices on your farm, and the way that you're growing food on your farm to feed people. It's becoming more important in our society. So in a practical sense, though, we're going to talk about what's going to change during the transition period and how you can help to deal with some of those challenges. So next slide, please. All right, so what's going to change on the farm? Most obvious thing right away is going to be your weed control methods. And I look at prevention through cultural weed control first. So doing things like having a good crop rotation, using cover cropping to your fullest advantage to try to break up weed cycles and prevent having problems in the first place. And that should be your main focus. And then after that, you look at mechanical methods such as cultivation, rolling cover crops. You can kind of see that in the picture there. And then mowing or hand labor, even just going out and pulling weeds, sometimes has to be done. So a variety of different methods there, but again, focusing on prevention. And then fertility inputs and soil amendments, those are going to change too. Obviously, you're not going to be using, synthetic products anymore. So we're going to be looking at animal manure to apply to land. Green manure, which is a cover crop term, but basically using your cover crops to add fixed nitrogen and to make more nutrients available. And then compost and mineral inputs as well as you need to add organic matter and adjust pH and things like that. And then looking at pest disease and control, again, focus on prevention here first. There's going to be some approved products that you can use to kind of help with that. But there's really no silver bullet when it comes to this part. And that's going to change quite a bit. So you got to do everything you can to try to prevent those things. And depending on the situation and the crop, there's so many different things that you can do, but trying to get good spacing in your crops and the cover on the ground and things like that is going to help quite a bit in most situations, but specifics have to do more with whatever you're actually growing. So record keeping, this is really important in organic. You kind of have to pay more attention to this than you would have in the past for your conventional records, because you really want to maintain and show that maintain your integrity, your organic integrity, and be able to show that when it comes time for certification inspections. So keeping records of your seed searches, what seed you purchased, any inputs that you did purchase for your operation, harvest records. You want to be able to show that if your inspector does a case back or an audit, you want to be able to show that the amount of grain that you're taking off of a field matches with the seed and the inputs that you purchased for that field. So, and then paying attention to equipment cleanouts and keeping records of those, especially if you've got a split system where some is organic and some isn't. You have to make sure that your equipment is cleaned out between, or have dedicated equipment for each different system, conventional and organic. And then talking about equipment there, that's going to change a little bit too. You can see the roller crimper on the right there for rolling down cover crops. That may be something that you might want to invest in. But then we talked about mechanical cultivation earlier. So you're going to want to have some of those things around. And depending on the type of crop, you might have to use one or a combination of tine weeder, rotary hoe, or a classic cultivator. And then also now there's flame weeders that are on the market that are doing a pretty good job for people. And then thinking about different equipment for planting and stuff too. You may want to invest in like a no-till planter or a drill if you haven't done some of that yet. So, and then cleaning and storage. Again, you want to be cleaning your equipment between operations to keep that integrity for the organic crop, and then making sure that your grain bins and hay barns are kept clean and separating for the integrity as well. So, all right, next slide. Thinking about livestock, if you have livestock and you're going to certify those, the changes that are going to take place there, that you're going to have organic feed. You're going to need identification records for your animals and where they came from and the systems that they've been managed under as you transition. And then parasite treatment and vet care is going to change a little bit. Obviously, there's going to be changes are going to be made in terms of the medications that are available for you to use on your livestock. If you do have an animal that gets sick and you do need to use a medication that's not approved for organic production, it's important to note that you still need to provide that medication to that animal, but then you need to have a record to take that animal out of organic certification. So records, individual records for the animals become really important. And then if you're using a forage type bedding, you need to make sure that that's organic too. Anything that the animals could potentially be eating needs to stay organic. And then also processing may change too. If you're going to be processing any animals on site, that's going to be something that you need to look into as well, that processing facilities in needs to be certified. So whether that's on your site or away from your farm, the processing facility needs to be certified organic as well. And then with the vegetable system, again, if you're selling vegetables off your farm, washing and packing is going to is a system that has to be certified as well through processing. Using plastic mulch is something that you're going to have to maybe think about as well. Seed sourcing, obviously, you need to have organic seed, certified organic seed. So vegetables are a little bit can be a little bit trickier in terms of that, but being able to source those seeds and show that even if you can't source something in the amount or the type that you want, that you've made the effort to try to find it in the first place is important. And then pest control, again, no chemical or synthetic inputs there. So you've got to work at prevention, and that looks a little bit different in a vegetable system, obviously, than a grain system. So thinking about pest control is going to be important. And then again, if you're going to be doing any value-added processing, so processing your vegetable products into, or fruits or whatever, into jams, jellies, or anything like that, where you're changing it from its harvested form, you need to have that certified as well. So just things to think about there that are going to be different from an organic system versus conventional. So the first step is to kind of get in touch with an organization that's going to provide you support through this transition period. And again, we're here as crop consultants with the Rodale Institute to help with that. There are other resources out there. Your certifying agency, we have PCO listed here, but it could be any certifying agency wherever you're at, is going to be a resource for you as well. Your state extension, your cooperative extension service is going to be a good resource for you as well. OGRAIN, which is through the University of Wisconsin, is a good resource for organic farmers everywhere. Lots of good. There's a listserv there that you can get on, and lots of good topics of conversation and things to learn there. Making connections in the organic community, whether that's for technical help or helping to find buyers for crops, whatever. OGRAIN is great. And then Moses, we have them listed here, but there's other organizations for organic and sustainable farmers that are spread throughout the country. Joining those and getting involved in that is important. Again, to get part of that community, and learn from each other. That's one thing in the organic community that we've always been really good at, I think, is creating a network of people who are really friends, and we really all try to help each other be successful. So tapping into that community and that body of knowledge is important when you're going through your transition. And if you have questions about anything, always ask. When you're going through your transition period, you don't want to make a mistake and set yourself back another 3 years. So if you have a question about applying any kind of substance or planting any kind of seed that you aren't sure whether it would be approved, you always want to ask questions, either through your consultants with us or with your certifying agency. Would be good places to go for that. So, all right, so I'm going to kind of go through sort of just an example scenario, a little bit of a timeline for transition. So this is kind of a typical one, I would say, that we might run across. And farmer that grows conventional corn and soybeans, very common, and wants to transition some acres to organic production. We're saying 30 acres here. Say the last prohibited substance was applied last year in July of 2020. So it was like a soybean field, say. That was the last time you applied a chemical to that field was in July of 2020. You'd be eligible for certification in July of 2023. So first question that you want to ask is there any conventional production that's directly adjacent to the field that would cause a contamination, possible contamination or commingling with the organic production? So if there is, then you need to have some buffers that need to be established in that field. And this could be grass strips or pollinator strips or anything like that, to try to, and this is in the NOP regulations, to have a significant enough barrier between conventional and organic production so that you don't have contamination between the two. But for this example, let's just say no, and that the entire field has wide enough buffers, either grass or tree rows, and then roads with ditches on either side are considered adequate enough buffers as well. So they want to continue growing corn, soybeans, and wheat, let's say. And that's pretty typical. I think you want to continue, I think most farmers continue growing some crops that are going to provide some value through the transition to help them get them through financially. Some of those crops do present some different challenges in terms of weed control that you might not get, say, if you went into hay or something like that. But for this example, we'll say that we want to continue growing those cash crops. So we'll look at what the transition plan will look like from there. Next slide. So in year one, will be this year, you're going to prep the field and add any soil amendments that you need to. And so you need to start managing it under organic production right away. And so using only approved inputs if you need to. And you're going to plant corn, say you're coming out of soybeans from last year, plant corn. So you're going to want to look at non-GMO or certified organic seed, and you need to have a clean planter. So if you're planting seed that's been treated in your conventional fields, you need to make sure that planter is completely free of that residue before you would go into planting your field for organic transition. So that's really, really important to be able to do that. And then once that crop is in the ground, you're looking at cultivation, again, through either a rotary hoe or a tine weeder, maybe to start out with once it hits like that 3-leaf stage. And then you're looking at cultivating after that. You'll harvest that crop, and then you start looking at cover crops. So we're going to try to get a rye cover crop in the fall this year. And again, using non-treated or certified organic seed to plant. And then going into year 2 for next year, you would have, again, field prep. But here for the rye that you had in as a cover crop, you have an option here. You could do some tillage and till it under, or you could possibly let it grow up and then roller crimp it, like you saw in the photo a few slides ago. And then you can plant soybeans directly into that. Again, either a non-GMO or a certified organic seed, and again with a clean planter that doesn't have any treated seed residue inside of it. You're going to cultivate this crop again if it was terminated by tillage, again with the rotary hoe or tine weeder, and then with the regular cultivator. If you rolled it, you wouldn't need to do this step. You wouldn't need cultivation there. And then you would harvest it, and then we're looking at going into year 3, planting is your crop that's going to be certified organic, and plant some winter wheat. So this needs to be certified organic seed, because this is going to be your crop that's going to be eligible for certified organic and to sell it under that label in year 3. And again, you need a clean drill that doesn't have any treatment residue in there. So for year 3, you've got the crop planted already the fall before. You're going to cultivate if needed towards the beginning. Again, once it hits that 3-leaf stage, you can go over it with a tine weeder if you need to. And then you're going to have a certification inspection that year. So you want to be prepared for that. Then you'll be able to harvest that wheat, and that wheat can be sold as a certified organic crop as long as it's harvested after you hit that 3-year transition date. So you want to try to plan for that. Say if your last prohibited substance was early July and from 2020, and you harvest this wheat crop in the middle or the end of July in 2023, you can sell that as your first certified organic crop. And then going into the next year after that, you might want to go back into corn again. Doing a rye hairy vetch combo mix for a cover crop is a popular one to do before you would go back into corn again. And you can also extend out your rotation and look at other crops to grow as you get into certification. Again, once you reach that certification, there's lots of different options for crops that you could potentially grow, and you may want to get out of the the row crop or a shorter row crop rotation and think about a longer rotation at that point. So lots of options from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. I'm going to use the last couple of minutes to talk about regenerative organic and a couple other programs that we're offering. So regenerative organic certification is for those farmers who want to go above and beyond the regular organic standards. It was talked about last year at our presentation, but at that point in time, it wasn't even ready for farmers to apply. But I'm happy to announce that farmers can apply for regenerative organic certification this year. Important to note that the baseline of that is being certified organic. So if you ever want to get to this level, you want to focus on organic certification first. Next slide. So what I want to point out about this is that the regenerative organic certification is built on 3 pillars, one being soil health, the second being animal welfare, and the third one being social fairness. So where the organic regulations often catch flack from is that, they may not do enough for when it comes to the welfare of the animal. And so what ROC actually requires is to be animal welfare certified. And that is an interesting part of it. And then on top of the social fairness aspect, there's also regulations surrounding living wages and democratic organizations and no forced labor. Right. The next thing I want to talk about is the new virtual campus that's been launched. We have the education department and Rodale Institute is now offering a transition to organic course, and all participants who are taking this webinar today and any webinar from Rodale in the future are going to get a discount. So if you see in the bottom right hand corner in red, please write down that discount code, because that's going to get you 50% off at checkout if you're interested in any of our courses. The transition to organic course is hardy. It takes a long time to get through, and it has a lot of great information, lots of interviews with farmers, lots of interviews with agricultural professionals. Another awesome tool that we have is the Organic Farm Search tool. It's been on our webpage on the farm consulting. So if you do rodaleinstitute.org/consulting, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, we have an Organic Farm Search tool. So if you search the address of your farm or of any farm, you can find farms between 1 and 300 miles, and it's going to have information about the type of operation they are, whether that's livestock or crops, and what crops they're growing. So if you're looking for places to, say you're a hay farmer and you want to sell some hay to an organic dairy farmer, this is an awesome tool to use. If you are a consumer and you're looking to purchase, some organic crops, this is an awesome tool to use as well. I also want to point out a partnership that has launched this year with Rodale Institute, Cargill, and Bell and Evans. So really what we're looking to do is grow our domestic supply of organic grain. Currently, a lot of organic grain is being imported from the outside countries. And what's that's actually causing is competition in the marketplace for domestic growers. And so we are partnering with Cargill and Bell and Evans to grow that domestic supply chain so that farmers are not competing in the international markets anymore. So Bell and Evans is seeking high quality corn grown within the United States for their operations. And so Cargill and Rodale Institute are working together to source that grain. Our goal is to transition 50,000 acres from conventional to certified organic production over the next 5 years. And they're taking soybeans and corn for 3 or 4 year offtake agreements. So there's also opportunities for some non-GMO sales during the period for a premium. And the last thing I want to point out is something we're really excited to launch, which is our BIPOC Farmer Micro Grant. This has been done in partnership with Organic Farmers Association, and it's offering a micro grant program for around $2,000, specifically targeting to support small-scale BIPOC farmers. And so it can go to funding things that might not normally be covered under a classic loan or a classic grant by the federal government or the state government. So if you're interested in this or know somebody who might be interested, they can apply on our website. Okay, that is it. We are at 3 o'clock. I don't know if we want to take like 1 or 2 minutes to answer a few questions. I did try to keep on top of some of the questions that were in the chat box. Sam, I don't know if there's any that we want to cover right now.
Sure, we can take a few. I think there are a couple we can roll through here since people took the time to type them out. We have a question from Mark. Good to hear from you, Mark. It was more of a comment that says your $65 for a 50-pound bag of VNS rye seems a little high. Yeah, I agree with that. We actually got that straight from a dealer. You typically can find that for a lot cheaper. Depends on where you live. So this was one we just got from a dealer that we work with pretty frequently, but better to overestimate, I guess, than underestimate. Another question we got is, this is a good one for Emily. What is the total cost of this certificate? And what if one just wants to get all the basic knowledge about the certificate course. I think that's a good one to cover. Generally, what are we looking at for an organic certification?
Yeah, so if you're a crops operation, you can aim for about $1,200 or less for your first year of certification. And one thing to point out is that there is a cost share program that is offered through your local farm service agency office that can cover 50% off of your certification costs for each scope. So if you are a livestock and crops producer, you'd be eligible for 50% off or up to $500 for both of those scopes. So it's really dependent on the operation, but it's going to be pretty low. I've heard some high numbers before, but yeah, if you want a better accurate number, feel free to reach out to us and I would be happy to kind of talk about your operation and what that might cost.
Emily? I'll just cover a couple more questions and then we can wrap up. This is a good one here. It says, it seems that many chemical-free farmers feel the USDA system has been taken over and shaped to serve the interests of large industrial growers and importers, and it's no longer responsive to the needs and situation of small farms. Do you have any views on that question? Are there obstacles put in the way of small growers? I think this is sort of it's a good concern to have, right? Because we want the USDA system, especially the USDA organic system, to represent everyone from small growers all the way to larger growers that are doing the right thing. And I think there is a little bit of a misconception that the USDA system can be taken over. The National Organic Standards Board and the NOP, the National Organic Program, are run by a lot of people that are small farmers, that are in the industry, that are scientists. These are not people that really can be swayed in the interest of large industrial commercial ag. They really do care about keeping the standards, pure. So that they try really hard to keep them in line with what they think organic growers would want. That said, there are ways that larger farms or industrial farms can sort of follow the letter of the law rather than the spirit of the law. And when we consult with growers, we always try to get them to do the latter. We want them to follow the spirit of the law, which is something that they, that the USDA regulations are somewhat vague. That vagueness allows some people to skirt some of those regulations. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception around that, but it's a great concern to have. We think that the USDA organic standard is still a great baseline standard for farmers to meet. And we've raised that bar a little bit now by saying, not only do we believe that, but we think that you can do better. And we have the regenerative organic standard as well. So great question there. Appreciate that very much. Just a couple more. Can you clarify the meaning of non-GMO or certified organic seed? Does the seed not have to be certified organic? That's a good one for you, Emily.
Yeah, that's a great question and an awesome point of clarification. So the way that the regulations are written says that you are required to use certified organic seed unless certified organic seed is not commercially available. So if you are an operation and you're looking for a very unique cover crop blend, that may not be available in certified organic form, but what it would be available in is untreated and non-GMO form. So for example, there are some commercially available crops that are in GMO forms, alfalfa, soybeans, and corn. And so if you are going to maybe be looking for a very specific cover crop blend or a type of corn that has, days to harvest, they might not have that available in certified organic. And that's when you can search around. And if you can't find it, then you are allowed to use untreated and non-GMO. I will point out the clarification that seedlings are different and seedlings are required to be certified organic.
Okay, thanks, Emily. And our last question, this can probably go right back to you, but does certification have to be renewed on an annual basis?
Awesome question. Yes, annual certification is required. So once you are initially certified, then you go through an annual process. With that annual process, it's very simple. You don't have to resubmit an entire application. You're just updating your organic system to accurately reflect what's happening on your operation.
All right, thanks so much. So we'll wrap it up there. Again, if this is something that you're interested in, please give us a call at the number you can see on this screen or send us an email. Your operation, depending on where you live, and our funding may be eligible for free consulting. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, we will send this link out so you can view it later, and it will be on our website. And please join us. Take a look at our webinar schedule for the remainder of the year. We're happy to have you, and thanks so much.